Hello. Ah, Are we excited? Okay, it's okay. Maybe not excited. And Julie say yes. Okay. How are we going? Let me know if you have any questions before we. Hey Nina, let me know if you have any questions before we get started. Good morning.
Hi, Tanya.
Hey Barbara. Good morning.
Hi. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Just to let you know, I've been working on my long list
Mm.
uh, from my last session, and it's working.
Oh, amazing. You have to have before and after photos.
Oh my God, I don't think I could do that, but yeah, I have.
That's good. That's good. That's very inspiring.
Yes, and
Yeah.
thank you as well.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. You did the work. I love hearing the after. I love hearing the results of the work. Like it's very inspiring because sometimes you don't really know. Hey Jeff, sometimes you don't really know like sometimes you have a session or you do some work with people or you give them some feedback or some focus and they're like no idea, and it's like years later like wow, that was like so inspiring. I'm like no idea. Like I feel it makes a difference. I know it makes a difference, but it's nice to hear. So let me know if you have any questions before we get started. Hey, Renika. So we have a hot topic. If you do have any questions that you do want to ask, and maybe it's like a bit more sensitive, feel free to like give me a heads up and write it in the private section of the of the meeting chat, and I will do question time at the end as well, so I'll get an opportunity to address that at the end.
Hi everybody.
Hey Shafna, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I'm excited to see this.
Are you excited to participate in this?
Of course.
Okay, good. Or maybe you're just more voyeurism and just like look on the side and just watch. Yeah.
I'll try not to be a spectator.
Okay. Yes. It will be fun. I definitely is definitely a topic that's when like Julie would know, because this is her jam. That when you get going and people really open up, it is an amazing conversation to have, because it's not something that you do on a daily basis, nor is it something you do sometimes. People don't even do most of their lives, so
yeah.
There'll be some like squirming, I think, in the seats sometimes, going, "Oh my gosh!" or no video on. Not yeah.
Is this the first time you're doing this, Tanya?
No, I've done this before. So I've run like a course for women on helping them embrace their sexuality. And then I've done this program a couple of times over the last 2.5 years or so. Yeah. So
awesome. Okay.
yeah. And then it's also the when I first started, you know how Demartini says go and niche when you first start. He's very much about niching in your in an area, so you get known for something. And and I just thought, well, what's the area that I'm like most inspired by, that I have the most amount of knowledge in, that I get most kind of energized around? And it was always like sexuality, and so I niched in like the rape, incest, abuse, they're all perceptions, right? But I niched in that. So it was something that I love doing, but just realized after a couple of years in it that I wanted to do so much more. And so, but it's interesting because even though that's my base of where I started, if I get someone, I'd say more than not, at some stage with the leaders I work with, they will bring up some kind of sexual challenge. So they'll say, they'll tell me something that they feel shamed about. So it still shows up, and I still get clients, but it's I like having variety.
Yeah.
But Julie says that's a brutal niche. But it's also so inspiring. Like, it's heavy because, you know, people are not coming, you know, because I stubbed my toe, you know, like it's, you know, they've got deep stuff that they've got to work through, and it's, it's really challenging, but it's so rewarding at the end for them to feel like they get their life back again, and they get empowered, and they don't have to stop doing all the things that have been disempowering for them. It's like life-changing. But what's interesting, if we say the stats are something like one in six, well, in Australia anyway, the stats are 1 in 6 have had a sexual abuse, you know, what they label as sexual abuse, which also means that 1 in 6, let's say majority of females, and that's just statistically they are majority females. That means there has to be 1 in 6, or there has to be 1 in 6 or 1 in 12 or 1 in whatever men that have abused. And so they're walking around society carrying potentially just as much shame and feeling of you know, regret, or you know, holding on to that, and then that's affecting their life equally as much as it's affecting the women. So interesting. I have worked with a lot of people who have also been on the, you know, how we modern people would label them, like the perpetrator dynamic, and being able to help shift them to be able to love and appreciate themselves as well, because they also equally deserve to you know, have their issues resolved as well. So
I guess unpacking it is probably the hardest part for any individual. Like, and then when they start the unpacking process, then it gets like, okay, yes, I can get through this. I can do this, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think, but if we even took a step before, it's just even putting their hand up and saying, I did that I sexually abused someone. It's like being courageous enough to say that in the beginning, to then have it to be worked on. I mean, we talk about social stigmas and talking about, like, you know, for example, in Australia, there's a change, and now in the aisle in the supermarket, it says period, you know, so you can go down that aisle to get your menstruation item, which is a stigma because it's not talked about. And so it's now becoming more open. And so at what stage are we going to start being able to be okay to talk about the individuals that have, you know, when they're a teenager, or when they're, you know, done things sexually that were perceived as overpowering towards someone else, and be able to work with that demographic and talk about it. That, I think we're a way off. But
well, in the UK, it's now spoken about, menopause is now being spoken about quite openly and broadly, and how it impacts both genders, you know. And it's really interesting to hear a male's perspective on what they go through when they are witnessing someone going through menopause, and how it actually impacts them emotionally and mentally as well. So that's a big thing. So we're slowly creeping up.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you, Shafna. So we are, so welcome to our class for today. We do normally have a before chat and an after chat with every class. So if you just jumped in, you're like, oh, if I missed something, do we start? You haven't. We're just having a conversation, and we do the same at the end as well. So if you first time coming to class, or you've been here many times before, do stay on for our after chats. They go everywhere and anywhere. So if you want to stay on, but you're more than welcome. So, hey Shafika, hey Erica, Lisa, welcome. So we have our topic tonight or today, for those people who are here, on sexual shame. So let me bring up my. So we have a topic on clearing sexual shame. So it's going to be some background. We're going to look at dynamics around sexual shame. We're going to start a conversation around sexual shame. And so we're going to get some background first, and then we're going to get into the practical and how to actually clear your sexual shame. And so we're actually going to do a practical exercise as well. So, why I particularly really love this topic is because the most basic form of human energy is our sexual energy. And so without it, there'd be no life, because we wouldn't be having sex, and therefore there would be no procreation, and then we wouldn't be where we are today. But none of us would be here. So yet most people approach it with not much understanding. It's not like unless you've done some reading on it, you don't really know that much about it. It's very experiential if you're willing to go and experiment. So it can bring ecstasy and deep joy, but it can also bring a lot of heartache and pain from a lack of proper knowledge. So hopefully today we can start a conversation about sexuality and about sex. And so that will help you to maybe normalize it, or resolve some of your fears that you have around it, so that you can start expressing yourself as a sexual being. So essentially, there's no right or wrong. What we learn in our maximum growth classes, in the universal principles, is there is no right and wrong. It just is. So therefore, there has to be just sexual energy. It just is. It's not right or wrong. It's not good or bad. It just is energy that flows through us. So my intention for this program for you today is to really enable you to be super comfortable, get really comfortable with expressing your sexuality. Now, that does not mean that you overly express it. It just doesn't mean that you have to hide away from your sexuality either, or expressing yourself. It's that if you decide to express it like publicly or privately, you feel okay about that. So if I share just a little story about my upbringing, some of you might know this, but so my dad married my primary school teacher. Actually, they hooked up in the background, doing and she's also a cougar as well. She's like 9 years older than my dad, which, so a cougar and a school teacher, it was just very in the like 80s, 90s. It was definitely a taboo thing. And so she was introduced into our family when I was 9, and she has a really interesting life. So she grew up in the foothills of the Himalayas in India, and she was raised as in a Catholic like boarding school. And so she was there all year round without leaving the school from the age of 6. And so she was essentially raised by Irish nuns. And so you can imagine what they would be like in the 1940s, where she is being shared information about her faith and about Christianity. And so she had still has a very strong spiritual practice. And so that rippled into our family. And so there was a lot of interesting dynamics that came out of that, which was, masturbation was like I didn't even know there was a thing. Wasn't allowed boys in my room, wasn't allowed to date. That it was a very sex was never talked about. It was never talked about. So even to the point of, we were talking about menstruation before, it was given a pad, and then that was it. It was okay. There's and also you never put your finger up there. So getting a tampon was never going to be a thing. You can never put your finger up there. I'm okay. So I was almost the fear of God put into me around sex. And so when I left school and I started to experience a little bit of life, I realized I didn't have the contrast of what my life was like until I'd left school and I had more experiences, and I realized, wow, my parents were very repressed in this particular area, and my family was really repressed in this area. So what was interesting is my journey through like expressing myself sexually was an interesting ride, and I'm really grateful for it. And I hope some of the experiences I can share with you, and I can also, you know, inspire you to maybe try different things or start new conversations with your spouse, so that can bring a deeper level of closeness and connection with you. So I'm going to pose a question to you. So if we say, where is love not, why wouldn't we also say, like, who are you not to be sexual? If love is everywhere and you're also a sexual being, who are you not to be a sexual being? Like, what would make you not express yourself sexually? So I want to think about that. And if you've got any reasons why you wouldn't express yourself sexually, then feel free to put it in the chat. But I just want you to ponder that. Because true, like, sexual fulfillment is going to come from inside of you. No one's going to do something to you and then you're going to feel all sexual, because that's like an outside stimulus. It's going to make you feel something. And so what we want to do is truly appreciate our sexual power from within, which means loving your past actions, loving your physical body, you know, and appreciating yourself and loving all of you. And that's where you're going to be able to express yourself sexually. Because anytime you don't appreciate your body, you're going to hide. Anytime you don't love some of your past actions, you're going to feel shame and guilt and then hold it in and repress yourself that way. So we want to be able to love and appreciate yourself, your past, your body, as a vehicle then to be able to express yourself sexually. But regardless, I just want to put this little like side note in. Regardless, everyone oscillates in their sexual like energy, or feeling like a sexual being versus a non-sexual being. Like, people oscillate in that. You know, it can vary from feeling tired and feeling, you know, you've got your focus at work. So people have varying degrees, and so there's not going to be an amount of energy that will flow through you all the time, every day, throughout your entire life, because again, that doesn't go with universal laws. It goes against it. So we're going to have like ebbs and flows, and it's just like, when it's flowing, great. What does that look like? And when it's ebbing, why is it ebbing? And maybe looking and unpacking that a little bit more. So I have one more question. Are you ready for it? You feel free to unmute yourself, but if you don't have to. So, I am a sexual being. All right, so now it's your turn. So now I want you to say that I am a sexual being. Give it a go. Let me see. I see a few people squirming in their seats, like, okay, give it to me. Give it to me, team.
I am a sexual being.
Oh, thank you.
I am a sexual being.
Thank you, Julia.
I am a sexual being.
Beautiful. It was like in harmony together.
I am a sexual being.
Thank you, David.
I am a sexual being.
Okay.
I am a sexual being.
I
am a sexual being.
I'm a sexual being.
I'm a sexual being.
Beautiful.
I am a sexual being.
Yes, you are, Barbara. So tell me, how does it feel?
Lovely.
Because you want it
liberating,
yeah, doesn't it? It's just like, and especially to do it publicly, like in front of other people. I mean, it's not like we're gonna walk around every single day and go, I'm a sexual being, but we're at least gonna you're going to feel something. So Belle asked a question like, what is it sexual energy? Like, how would you define it? And essentially you can feel it in your body. You're going to feel a flow of energy running through you. Instead of being stagnant and dull and empty or a void, you're going to feel a energy that runs through your body. Can you feel it when you say it? Or if you feel a little bit stuck with it, it just means that maybe there's a bit of repression around sexuality that's not allowing it to flow as freely, but it's a sense of energy. So if you felt a little bit uncomfortable, you didn't share, that's okay too, because that's all part of the process, and that's maybe why you're here today. So let's get started. We are going to, so today we're going to go through some of the parts of like what is sexual shame and look at it a little bit deeper. But anytime you have questions, anytime you want to share, please feel free to just unmute yourself or write it in the chat section if you also want to do. And it's very okay that if you want to do it publicly or privately, if you've got a question, feel free to also do that as well. All right, so I'm going to define shame maybe a little bit differently to what you, maybe know, given the exposure to the Demartini method, but I'm going to look at shame a little bit differently. So I want you to look at it from more like a evolutionary point. So when we were back in caveman days, we had a way of like using shame as a policing act. And so anytime we acted outside of the crowd in a group, shame was something. If you did something that was unacceptable to the crowd, you would have shame put on you. Shouldn't be doing that. And you would be ostracized, maybe even to the point of excluded from the group. And that was likely that you would die. So we have this deep-rooted experience inside of our nervous system of shame. So anytime we experience it, it's felt inside of our physical body, and it changes because of the changes that we have in our mental, in our brain. And so it's to essentially keep us alive. That's what it's there for. And so shame-based living is like living with this secret inside of you that prevents you from a true connection then with yourself and your partner, because you're trying to hide away from the world and hide yourself away from your partner or from the world. And so really having an opportunity to clear that's going to be really helpful, not just only for your intimate relationship, but also for your life as well. So we're going to define shame, or sexual shame, and we're going to look at it in different parts. So we're going to look at it, dynamics, thoughts, behaviors, and physiology. So if we look at it in terms of the dynamics about sexual shame, so we have a look at any time that we are afraid, for example, or nervous to express ourselves, that can play into our dynamics in our relationship, which we talked about before. We also have the feeling or the sense of feeling embarrassed. So they're kind of feedbacks to let you know that you are feeling some level of shame. If you feel that rosiness in your cheeks, I don't know if you said I'm a sexual being, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so, and then that you're feeling that embarrassedness, then that's a sign that there's something there in your mindset that's experiencing shame. We have a varying degree of thoughts, which is like one's like, I can't believe I fantasized about someone else while I was having sex. Like, that's just wrong, bad. I'm cheating. Shouldn't be doing that every time. No. So we want to be able to notice our internal thoughts. Or it's like, I shouldn't want to be slapped during sex. That's just too kinky. Or what happens if I had anal sex? It's like, no, that's just dirty, or that's wrong, or that means something because of that. And so I only want to have sex with the lights off. Like, I don't want someone to see my body. Like, I don't want to lay flat on my back because of what my breasts would look like. And so I don't want and then there's shame in elements of how the body looks in certain positions, and well, I don't want to do that, and I won't do that because of X, Y, Z. And so that's all beautiful feedback. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just feedback to show you that there's elements of shame that you're hiding from. So they're all the behavioral things. And then we also have the shame around the physical body, which is like the hiding. And we also have, what's also really interesting is we have our fight, flight, freeze, and fawn behavior. So our flight behavior is anytime if we get into a dynamic around sex, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm like, you'll have a fight about it. One is you flight and you're like, I don't want to be there. I'm going to avoid it. The freeze response is like, you can feel your whole body tensing up when you go to do that particular action, or you even think about having sex, whatever it is, you're like freezing. And there's also fawn. So I don't know if you know this, but fawn is, so I'll give you an example. When one of my clients, she was growing up, she had a really, what she perceived a very violent father. And so he would come home after drinking, and he would be violent towards his mum and her mum and her older siblings. And so she learned as a strategy to help him to calm down, she would please him. So instead of running away and hiding that flight response, not freezing and I'm not going to do anything, she learned as a behavior that she would go up and she would be extra pleasing to him, daddy, 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 and use, somewhat of her feminine sexual power to disarm him and stop him. And so she learned a fawn behavior to be able to navigate through those dynamics, which then would show up in her sexual life, where she would also then go and overly please men that was doing things that she didn't specifically want to do. And so that was a behavior as a result of that childhood experience that she had that was unresolved and getting to play out in her adult life. So that's the fawn response. And so we essentially, we talked about the energy not flowing. So there are all the different ways that you can go and define sexual shame. But at the end of the day, you know whether you have it or not. You know whether you're hiding or or maybe even the opposite, like overexpressing. So where does it come from? So if we can we'll do a quick recap history-wise. We have, women more so than men have copped that sounded like another word, but it was supposed to be copped a little bit of flack on the whole sexual side, because it's like we're either prudish or promiscuous for women, but then for men, they get, praised for their sexuality. And so the concept of virginity was really at hold, and it's obviously it's a little bit different now, but virginity was very much a concept that was, you've got, maybe up until last century, that it was sacred. Well, in some cultures it was so sacred, and you'd save yourself until marriage, or save yourself so that you can, and if you weren't as valuable, or you couldn't even get a husband or a wife because of that. So that's one. So one is like our culture plays a big part, as does religion as well. So every religion has different schools of thought, and even if we look at over the centuries with, say, Christianity, that they have said masturbation's okay, and then turned around and said masturbation's not okay. And so it's had oscillating experiences with sexuality. Even I went to, I don't know, has anyone been to the Sistine Chapel in Rome? Yeah. So if you notice that a lot of the penises were chopped off and put flowers on, because one of the popes decided that that it was shame, you know, you shouldn't be exposing yourselves like that in all the art. So decided to chop them all off and put little like leaf over the top of them. So it's definitely plays an impact. And then also education. So I'm curious, with your sexual, you know, sex education, did you get educated at school? You got some level or no? So mix. Nothing. Yeah, like yeah. So I think it depends. Oh, sorry, Jeff.
Father-son night.
Oh, was it like official night?
Yeah.
And tell me, what did he explain?
Oh, it's a long time ago.
Was it a long, in-depth conversation? Was it like quick?
No, it's just like you go along with a parent to a seminar and they'd explain. Explain it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really, so it was with a lot of other boys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was run by the school, I think.
Okay. That's amazing.
I can't remember. Yeah.
How was everyone else's experience? I had nothing. I just remember my girlfriend at the time was like 15 years old and she was dating someone who was like 18, which was crazy. And she's like, they would have like, she'd come back on Monday and she's like, Tanya, we had like sex like 17 times on the washing machine, on the kitchen, in the car. And I'm like, holy smokes. I'm like, I'm a rookie. I haven't even started. I'm like, I was a bit overwhelmed. Like, but curious at the same time. So education definitely plays a role in sex education. So I'm curious, do you know the age that you, if you have children, that you would start to have the conversation around sex? Do you know the age? It is 3. You start at the young age of 3, which is where the babies come from. Yeah, is Julie shared that is the cartoon book or the basic book that you would read for your child, for them to know. And the book actually explains at a 3-year-old level sex. So it shows a position of a man on top of a woman. And in the book I have. And so it starts the process and it shows where the baby starts growing and then what happens afterwards. And so and then how to care for the baby at the end. So it starts the journey. Every level is going to have, you know, you talk about the birds and the bees, but you talk about it at different levels. It's different from a 3-year-old to a 6-year-old to a 16-year-old. And it maybe have a different conversation from a girl to a boy as well. Leanne said, I grew up in an Italian household, so it was like my upbringing as well. It's like not talked about. David had no education at home or school. It was very, very taboo. So you have to then ask, so some of you are parents, or some of you might be parents in the future, or you know a parent. We have to then ask ourselves, like, what is it specifically then about, if we grew up in a household where we weren't taught, it wasn't taught and it wasn't spoken about, how open are you with sex with your kids? How much do you talk about it with them? Do you share and ask them questions? Have you even had the conversation? Are you open? Like, where are you at? Because that in itself is sharing. Like Erica said, I used to teach sex education to 10-year-olds in schools. Amazing how some of them already knew while others were completely ignorant. So yeah, and Julie said completely open, sex positive family, but I still find edges of shame in meeting this.
Tanya, I've got with my daughters who are now 24 and 21, always been very, very open with them, and also growing up in the country and having animals and stuff. But I found that it got to a point where they didn't want to know. They wanted to find out themselves and do it their own way. And I found that oftentimes when I come in with too much information, they're like, no, no, no. And then I remember how the journey of that naive exploration and realization on your own, you don't want to, well, you don't want to, I shouldn't be saying that, but I kept it as an important tour of their own to actually be able to go through innocently and to explore it and to make their own judgments about things as well, without too much information coming in, you know, from the external world as well. So yeah, it's just something that I had to pull myself up on a few times before. It was like, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And you know that this is good and you can do this and that and the other, and too much information, and it takes away that real exploration of themselves as well.
Well,
so,
for sure, because it's also, you know, like in the beginning, it's exciting and it's, you know, something interesting, something you don't know where your edges are. But if someone shares their pain points and puts, I'm not saying that you did this, but like if you share your own pain points and it's like, oh, you don't do this and you do, you know, all that, then it's like, oh, I wonder how much they then pick up and instead of just, you know, the innocent part is beautiful. Yet if they're also exposed to people who are much older and have much more experience, then sometimes they're really innocent, then they can also go down a path maybe they don't necessarily want to go down. And so it's like, how do you, yeah. So I don't think there's a one guide to fit all, you know, conversations. I think it would be definitely checking in.
Yeah, for sure. And with I found also with the onset of porn and stuff like that, that's so accessible now. It's like you've got kids that are their first sexual experience is they have to be a porn star as well. You know, that kind of that aspect, and to have a conversation around that, saying, you know, you don't have to take it up the arse this time. It's okay not to. But then who are we to say that as well? So it's this. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting dynamic.
Well, definitely. I mean, especially like I think like porn, for example, can give an overexpressive version of what intimacy and sex is. And so if that's all they've been aware of, that's what they think they have to do. So sometimes it's also, you know, them at least knowing that there's another option can be also helpful. So Shafika says her kids are 6 and 9. They've grown up so fast, and the 9 is starting to get curious, which is great because curiosity just means that, you know, one of the things that I did with my husband, he had 3 kids, and so I just remember this particular one day, the oldest came to me and said, both of the 2 oldest were together with me, and then they said, we were doing a crossword, and the crossword came up with the word lovers because it was a Romeo and Juliet one. And they're like, oh, babies come out your belly button. And I'm like, I will hold off on this conversation just for a moment because it's not my place. So we had a conversation, and then his ex-wife and him had a conversation, and we decided we'd share about where babies came from. So we gave them the book, Where Do Babies Come From? You can just get it from any bookstore. And they read it. We read it to them. They read it to each other. And they read it for about 2 or 3 weeks. They like continuously read it. And so one time we were walking by one of their bedrooms, and they were all 3 in there having a little laugh and reading together. But then after their curiosity had been like, they knew about it. Okay, I get it. They were on to the next thing of the what they were being curious about. It's that exposing them and being available to talk about things, it kind of it stops them, it doesn't make it taboo, because taboo things people want to go and like do more of, but when it's out in the open, it's a little bit, the whole dynamic changes. So David says, is porn the balancing force of all sexual suppression? So are people dynamic expressing what is hidden? I mean, potentially, you can potentially, but there's a lot of, I wouldn't say just porn. There's a lot of things, like you've got a lot of dynamics that we're playing, but you have people who are pressing themselves sexually, and then people who are overly expressing themselves and putting their energy into work. And so that's part in the dynamic. So yes, porn is a dynamic that's playing out in the repressed, but so is putting the men that just go out and drive their business and put all their energy into their business, their sexual energy into their business, then that's also playing part in the dynamic as well. So it's not just, if we're looking at sexual energy, it will be a balancing act. So let's get into the stuff. Let's go, Belle.
Can I just ask you a quick question about that? When you just said, people that put their sexual energy into work and things like that, before when you were saying, I'm a sexual being, can you feel it rise up in you? If you're putting that into your work, does it feel different from acknowledging you're a sexual being?
Does it?
I'm just curious.
Does it mean you have to be in an intimate relationship having sex to be a sexual being?
Yeah, and also about the sexual energy, is it a feeling of arousal? When you say I'm a sexual being and you can feel the energy coming up, is it an arousal energy? Or is
it's a life force energy. So instead of it's and it can turn into arousal because you're in an intimate connection with someone, and then, or you see something and you get aroused. So yes, but it's more the life force energy that runs through you.
Perfect. Yeah.
Cacaoing. We are going to talk about something super interesting. There's this idea, which is sex. And normally we have this idea of sex as being a essential form. And it's normally one male, one female, or two males, two females together, and they're having intimacy. And this idea then of bringing in a third party is a little bit non-conventional. So we're going to dissect this one so that you can kind of see some of the layers behind sexuality and the shame that might be involved in it. So then you can think about your own experience and your own stuff. So this is the dynamic where you are observing someone having sex with your partner. So you got to ask, why do people like this? So why do people like the observing aspect of a sexual dynamic? So yes, some people say it's kinky and there may be a reason why, but we're going to look at it into, for example, we have a biological reason, and it might be sperm competition. And so they're going to feel like they're competing a little bit more towards the reproduction. And so they might enjoy that aspect of watching their spouse have sex with someone else. They also might have the jealousy dynamic kick in. They might like the jealousy dynamic kicking in. And so that gets them more in tune with their partner, or more in that competition dynamic, which makes them more eager for their partner. And so that is also a part of the dynamic as well. Some people like we have different experiences when we're growing up, and some might like, because of emotional charges, they might like the dynamic of submission. Some women I know that have very high-powered, make lots of decisions in their job and their role, and they've got lots of responsibility, like being super submissive, because the pendulum swings the other side. They just want to be submissive. Or some men feel that sometimes that they maybe like the aggressive, dynamic, because they don't get to put out their aggression in their everyday life. And so they put their aggression inside of their sexuality. And so there's different dynamics that kind of play at part. If we also have a look at this dynamic as well, it could also be because it's taboo. Like the moment you hear that something's taboo, it can be something that you either want to go and try and express, or that you have shame if you even go and try it, because of the taboo or the naughtiness around it. So I want you to think about the thing that you have. I want you to think about the thing that you have sexual shame about. So feel free to share it in the chat, unmute yourself. But what's the thing that, share it privately, but what's the thing that you perceive to have the greatest shame around sexually? I'm curious. Did someone unmute themselves because they want to share? Oh, you don't know, there's nothing. Because what we can realize is that there's a normality around your shame. One of the fastest ways we can transform our perceptions, and we can change it so we can love it. And sometimes it's just about sharing it and going, man, I have the same thing. Like I really struggle with, you know, my body in certain positions because it's like cellulite or it doesn't look sexy. And so it's like, oh, I feel the same thing. Or the shame is not getting aroused and therefore not having an erection or not getting wet enough in order to even go there. And so that is a shame. And so if they'd be like, oh, I've had that too. There you go. It's like, what's the dynamic for you? So we've got the body, having too many partners in my life. What it's like, and then you could ask, well, what would be the number? It's like, is it like more than 3, more than 30, more than 300? That'll be like, oh, that's too many. I've had some shame around pornography, so it's dirty and wrong, lack of connection, feeling cheap, feeling around it. So it's just the thought of using it. Shame is like health changes, so there's no drive, which changes, completely changes. So tell me, what's your shame? Because it will also be helpful for when we go into other questions, and I'll also be able to help guide you a little bit more as well, because I'll know what the thing is that you feel most shame about. Barbara's desiring other people other than my partner. Just even the thought of desiring someone, like you're not actually going and doing anything, but it's just like even thinking about someone else, or even having a thought, oh, they're really interesting. Oh no, that's bad. Yep, gasp. Yep. Is I have shame around having had a once-off experience 4 years ago, 16 years into my marriage. Is about having a belly and a vaginal prolapse. Too many partners previously, fear around really letting go and enjoying it, which I don't know, but I know a lot, like statistically, a lot of women have, I don't remember the numbers, but it's a high number, have never had an orgasm during sex. So I'll tell you can I tell you a funny story? So that's a little bit of shame there. Okay. When I went I lived in Bali for 4 months and I taught English. So I had this opportunity in my mid-20s, and I was sitting at the dinner the night before I was leaving. And then someone said to me, can't remember who brought up the conversation, but they said, you know what, Tanya, you can't bring pornography into Indonesia, nor can you bring a vibrator. And I was like, what? And I was like, I can't believe it, because I'd only ever used a vibrator. So I was like, I can't believe this. This is crazy. So they're like, well, what are you going to do? And so I was like, well, I don't know. I need ideas. So we brainstormed ideas on what to do to fix my problem and solve my problem. So we decided on an electric toothbrush. It vibrates. You would never know. So we march on down to Woolworths, and we go through the aisle, and there's a Dora the Explorer. Well, that's pretty cool. It's pretty, like, you know, perfect for the experience. So there I bring Dora the Explorer with me in my suitcase, and off we go to Bali. Within a week it broke. Like, it did not work at all. I was like, this is not built for durability. And yeah, so I was like, okay, I just have my hand. So I had to then actually I had to learn, because I know poor Dora, she nightmares. But I had to learn how to then masturbate without using electronic device. But it was like the best thing I could have ever done for my sexual expression, because I didn't need a mechanical thing to go very fast in order to get pleasure, that I could learn to give it myself without, you know, at a slower pace, and it'd be really enjoyable. So, but that was I was like, an interesting experience in life. So tell me about you. You should have gone with Colgate. It lasts longer, and it's got more doctors recommended. Okay, so let's get serious, team. All right, we're going to go into the questions on how to clear your sexual shame. So I want you to understand every experience is going to be different. These are a guide for your questions, but I cannot say that it's the same questions for every experience every time. So I do want you to really, if you come to maximum growth classes, one of the things that we do is we really think about your problem and then what question is appropriate for your particular problem and challenge. So I do want you to still put your thinking cap on, even though this is the questions, the general questions that you'll be asking. So we're going to go through them. I want you to think about it in relative to one of your challenges that you have sexually. And then we're going to, first of all, number one question is define what it is that you feel shame about. So we're not defining shame. We're defining what it is that triggers you to feel the sensation of shame in your body. And so what's the action or non-action or inaction that you are judging in yourself? Or if it happens to be towards someone else, what are you judging in them? So then you're going to go back. Question 2 is then you're going to go back to your original first moment that you ever experienced it. So if it is, for example, had sex with too many people, for example, that's the thing you feel shame about. So what you do is you go back to the moment you felt like, oh my gosh, I've just realized you had sex with someone else. Like, okay, that's too many. So I want you to go back to that moment. And so then you're going to ask question 3 is, how did that moment serve you? So how did it serve you to have sex with lots of different partners? And the number of people that you did, and what was some of the benefits that you got from in that moment, and then from that moment onwards to be experienced, because, you know, people pay for experience. Anyway, then you're looking if in that same moment you had done the inverse of what you maybe fantasize isn't the word here, because maybe it's idolize, because it's what did you wish and hoped it was going to be, but what did you idolize it was going to be? And so what would be the drawback? So if you had very few partners, you know, whatever that number is, so you can be specific, what would be the drawback? So as you look for the benefits of how it was, the drawbacks of the way that you wish it was, you'll feel the changes in your physical body. The one way you're going to know that it's changed is that you can verbalize it out to someone else and you don't feel that physical reaction inside of your body anymore. There isn't shame. If you had to tell a partner, I've had sex with X number of people, they would go, okay. And you would be okay with it because you're really comfortable with it. You can share that with someone else. They're also really comfortable with it too. But if they're uncomfortable with it, that's their stuff. And then it's okay because you're okay with it. It doesn't change how you feel about it. You're like, I know, I'm actually really grateful for it. So I don't mind what your experience and reaction is, because that's how your judgment you have on yourself, not on me. And so, or it might be actually on them, but they can work through it. So that's going to be your feedback. So what we want to do is we want to work through these questions on each of our shames until we clear our shame, so we can feel like we can express ourselves in a way that feels authentic for us. So I'm going to give you some time to go through a experience of what you've perceived to create shame in you around sexuality. Ask these questions that you have on your screen. And if you get stuck, or you're like, I'm not sure if the questions are applicable, or I need to change them, then you just feel free to unmute, or you can also just write in the chat section. So if you're working on your body, if there's something physical about your body, some changes, you're looking at the benefits of those changes, you want to label what those changes are, and the drawbacks if your body was like how it used to be. If it is porn, for example, what's the benefit of watching porn? What's the drawback if you watch no porn, so that you can really appreciate that and take out the shame around it. If it's desiring other people, again, what's the benefit to you and your partner as well of desiring someone else? And what's the drawback if you only desired them or only thought about them? All right, I'll give you some time. So I'll give you 8 minutes of some quiet time. So use this time as your quality time to do your work. So if you can stop all distractions, just stay focused on these questions and do 1 clearing, or 2 if you're fast. Okay, team, tell me, how did you go?
Tanya, I've got a question. I'm not quite sure if this is the forum for this, but with the sexual expression that you're talking about and the life force, that's I'm a sexual being, it's a life force, and then the force arises and can get channeled into sexuality. That life force can obviously get channeled in other areas of life too. From my understanding, that the sexuality is like the amygdala brain, the animal brain, which keeps us in that, you know, seek and avoid kind of dopamine reward thing, which is what sex is about, to keep the species going and all that kind of stuff. So like for myself, I was sort of picking at things, you know, what am I got sexual shame around? And one of the things is that I don't have a sexual expression, so to speak. And I'm not really particularly seeking it, like the desire's not there. And so I'm thinking, okay, I've got this life force in me, but it's not being channeled sexually. So does that mean I'm not a sexual being? Because
I would question, because if you think that sexuality is just an amygdala, you know, lower brain seeking and rewarding, what about when you're connecting with another human being and you're having a deeply connected experience and getting a value met there? Is that the same thing?
It would have to, you'd have to look at the actual moment, really, but it could be the connection that you're seeking, not just the
not just sex. Yeah, because I think because I wonder if labeling it like that is then saying it's bad and then wanting to somewhat avoid it.
Yeah, and I'm not having it as bad. I'm just trying to put it in a big picture about where sexuality actually fits in the us transcending the animal nature kind of thing. But
if we didn't have it, we wouldn't be able to transcend our animal nature, because we'd stop procreating. So we'd have to still say that
there is a point where we do stop procreating, where we do stop creating, we're infertile. So then what happens to it? You know, that kind of play as well. And then to think that, okay, so if I don't have like, because I've stopped bleeding, I've gone through menopause, or I'm in menopause because you never actually get out of it. So, you know, like obviously I don't need to procreate. So the actual sexual act, as far as creating life goes, is irrelevant. So then where does the sexual energy go? What is the purpose of it then, except for connection and dopamine? So yeah, so I'm just kind of trying to play.
Are you feeling that's a bad thing? Like, do you feel like if you lived in your animal brain and you just did it for pleasure, is that a bad thing?
No, it's not. But what I'm seeing is that because I'm judging myself for not having a desire to bring it into my life, that's my sexual judgment. Is like, wow, I'd rather someone fuck with my brain than with my pussy, you know, that kind of thing at the moment. Excuse me, everybody. But so I'm thinking, well, there's my sexual shame, because I'm not actually, if I did meet a guy and they were interested, it'd be like, well, I'm not really interested. So that's my sexual shame. But then I'm thinking, well, why is that a shame? Why is that shame? And yeah, sorry, I'm just playing.
Yeah. So why?
Like, yeah, because it's a comparison to you're a sexual being, and I'm like, well, I'm not a sexual being at the moment. So
what are you thinking then? What do you think? What's the ideal then? Like, what's the idea? If you look at our species, so what's the ideal for our species? Because sometimes if we look at it, that can help to look at the shame from a different perspective, as well, like look at it from a different angle. So what's the ideal for our human species?
From my perspective.
Yeah.
From my perspective, or just as a what I've been taught, you know, because again, it's this comparison of who I think I should be, you know, and what is healthier for us to have sexual expression, you know, that kind of stuff.
I know, but sometimes I don't know, like sometimes we want to always question what we've been taught, everything, which is, you know, what you're also doing, like the question. And so what Julie said, is there a lower mind and a higher mind sex? There definitely is. There's like, and maybe not everyone's experienced it, but there's definitely a there's like a union you can get with sex, and there's also just humping and pumping and having grinding sex, and that's it. And so you can definitely know the difference between the two. I would just look at, well, does it serve you? Or is it is it an avoiding? Is it the thing you're like, I don't want to have sex because I want to be in the avoid, seek dynamic. But then just in not wanting to have sex, isn't that avoiding?
It could be, but it's not so much that I don't want to have sex. It's more like I don't look for it. It's not on my radar. And so then it's like, oh, you're repressed. And it's like, well, I don't feel repressed, but maybe I am. So where,
Isn't it just that your sexual energy just goes somewhere else? Like I always looked back to my mum, all her sexual energy, all that energy was put into her work and her business. So she was still a sexual being. It was just expressed in a different sort of way. That's how I sort of remembered taking on this information.
Yeah.
Not that you're not a sexual being, you're just doing it in a different form.
But then it's not sexual, then it's life force energy.
I do yeah, but then I also wonder, like, I was like expressive in my 20s, and I kind of feel like, been there, done that, like that experience. And so then now it's like there's not a void to go in, like there's not a void of going, oh, I haven't tried this or I haven't done that. It's like, I don't have that. And I don't know if you're the same, Belle, or not, but it's like the void there isn't, compared to, the curiosity back in the 20s, nowhere near what it is now. And so, pardon?
I was just going to say, that was the other thing that I was going to bring up, was that it's a perception that something's missing to fill, and it's like, I don't have that, So again, it's like, well, where does the sexuality go if there's no void to fill? Then
I would ask, if you did, if someone came along and you really, like they met on a mental level, and you really liked them, would you go there sexually with them, or would it still be like, no?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't not. That's for sure. I wouldn't not. Especially if they had pecs and tight ass, that kind of thing. Hairless, childlike buttocks, that sort of thing. Definitely. Yeah. Sorry. I'm not but yeah. No, definitely. No, it's just kind of like pulling apart, trying to find out where's my point that I need to look at. So, but no.
And I just think that I know that we, through this work, yes, we are at some stage will become, like, we have to remember that, like, we are still animals, spiritual beings, and animals living in our body. And so today, right now, here, we also want to make sure that we don't judge the animal side of ourselves and think that the angelic side of ourselves is better, or the higher mind is better than the lower mind, because they're both required together. And so it's also like learning to love both sides of those. So if it means you just want to be an animal and you just want to have really good sex and get fucked really hard, then love that part of you. Like, rather than going, oh, judge it, shouldn't be it, because I should be about like a greater purpose and life for, I'm not saying, Belle, this is you, but just like in concept, like we want to look at, we really want to look at the judgments we have, and then not thinking that even just being as, transcending our physical like desires and needs is a better way to live life than being in our lower body, because both are required. So it's like learning how to have a balance. So Julia said John talks about the Breakthrough Experience book of looking at what does sexuality or having sex mean to you specifically, like connection, touch, pleasure, and looking for the form specifically, opposed to being broad in general. That's if you're looking for where your sexuality, or what you want out of sexuality or sex, and then also if you don't have it, where is it in its different forms? Like Belle was stroking her pussy cat before, so it comes in different forms. So David said helpful conversation, so thank you. Julie said, I always think of sexual energy as creation energy, is always can be challenged into whatever you are creating, just life force energy. Maybe look at where your creating transforming power is right now. Amazing. All right, team. So hopefully you've got some maybe some ideas. You start to be able to clear some of your sexual shame and be able to begin the journey of dissolving your shame. And so I would encourage you to do this regularly. Like if you are looking at wanting to work through and clear some of your shame, doing it regularly is going to make a difference, so that in your intimate relationship, that's going to change. It's going to change your health, because you're going to have more energy flowing through, your mental health as well, your experience in life. So if you're looking at from a technical point of view, and this, because that's not my specialty, but I'm just going to give it to you. There's an app which is called lover.io, and it is a practical app that will give you all the practical tools that you would need in order to express yourself sexually with a spouse, on your own, going through that dynamic. If you're struggling a little bit, even if you're struggling in your intimate relationship with a partner, this is a very experiential app, and they've put a lot of love into it. So if it is something that you go, you know what, it does cost $100 and something to use for the year, but it definitely is. I would highly recommend it from a practical standpoint. So from a emotional, mental standpoint, and you feel like inside of your body, you know that there are some shames and guilt, shames that you want to clear around sexuality, we have our transformation day that is coming up. We're going to do 4 each year. Every year, that's going to give you an opportunity to come and do a full 6 hours with the transcendental experience at the end. So you get to have that heart open moment with people in class at the very end. I'm doing a special for those that come to this class and have attended this class, or you've watched the replay. We're doing a special. And for those that come and are a non-member, if you use the code SEXY, you will get a 40% discount off the session. And then if you are a member, you can say SEXY member as a coupon code, and you will get 50% off. So this is a crazy, 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 crazy deal. So if you want, jump on and connect in with the deal. I think I got the percentages right. Anyway, it's a crazy deal that you'll get for the coming and attending. So if you can't, we've got 4 sessions each year. So if for whatever reason you can't come, SEXY member 69, I'll quickly go and change it. So if you can't come, you have 2 years to use the session. So if you want to do the 4 sessions and for whatever reason you can't come to one of the dates, they're normally held on a Saturday morning for the people in the other side of the world, and those in Australia, it's the afternoon, evening. So it is 4 times a year, and you're welcome to come to if you do 4 and you get a 4-pack, then you've got 24 months to use them. And it's an opportunity. We can do sexual shame, but if there's something else you want to work on, also use that as an opportunity. And it is only for this class. So you do have, if you are interested in doing it, then you do need to sign up and join the classes. So hopefully I will see you there. It's going to be a fun transformation where we get to put all the work that we have with the Demartini method we do in maximum growth classes each week, get to put that into action over 1 full day for you to be able to clear, plus having the beautiful experience at the end, which is the part that I love most. The whole reason why I want to do it is to give you that experience of feeling like that connectedness, no matter where you are in the world, that you can feel that transcendental experience even online. All right. So thank you, team, for coming along for our class. We do have another class in 12 hours time. So if you want to come along to that as well, it is the same, almost the same content, definitely a different conversation, different group of people. So feel free to come along to that, be a little fly on the wall, or you can come and participate. You can be voyeurism, or you can be like a menage a trois, or you can come in and just like do a whole group thing, you know. So come and join us. I look forward to seeing you at the next perfect time. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you. And let me know if you're staying on for our, oh yeah, Shofna, yeah.
Oh no, I just said thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're most welcome. Thank you for participating. So let me know if you have any questions, either on this topic or a different topic.
Tanya, I just wanted to jump in after Belle's 69er or comment. I just thought it just came to my mind in year 7. We had a netball team and we were all born in 1969. So we called it the 69ers, and we wondered why everyone laughed at us, but no one told us what they were laughing at. And it wasn't until we got a bit older, like it was like, what do you mean? What are you laughing at? So yeah. So then, a couple of years later, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. The innocence, that's very cute.
I know.
Yeah. And what a year to be born in. What year are you born? 69. It's like getting you to fully own your sexuality.
Yeah. I'm still working on that, but yes, absolutely. So that saying like how much shame around that is, because no one was able to express and tell us why. They giggled.
Yeah. But it's a society thing, like we've oscillated through expression and repression in society, but still overall we're pretty repressed, even in like when sex was a little bit more like expressive, say even our advertising have become more sexually overt and expressive. We're still not as expressive in the home and talking about sex, and still you can go and do a shooting game, with your kids. They can go do shooting games, they can kill someone in a virtual world, yet we can't show nipples on a screen. What's that? Like, that's a bit. You can go and buy a gun in the US, but you can't show a boob. Like, there's a bit of a standard issue here. Just a little bit. So we'll see. I think I think the more that we can normalize, we can normalize sex and talking about it, then it will start to change more as a culture as well.
Hey Tan, I had written you a message, but it's fine. It's not really that personal. Here we go. So growing up in a house like yours, like I wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend, and the whole Catholic thing, and it was all about being seen. And so, I wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend, or most certainly not be out and being seen. So like, I'm just thinking in terms of PDA, like if I just met someone now and wanted to pash them out in public, I'd be all like, wondering if anyone's watching kind of thing, or being seen, right? And I'd like for that to not be an issue. Like if I just want to pash someone in the street, I just want to pash them. So
is this going to be an acting exercise where you just go up and say, can I just pash you?
Like the $2 exercise.
Yeah, like the $2 exercise.
Not just anyone, but yes. So I was getting stuck around if it's an action or inaction. So the shame is around being seen or kissing in public, but do I then look at the benefit to me of not having kissing in public, or the benefit to being seen to me? Like, because
I would go ahead and have a look at the moment where you were seen kissing in public.
Well, I just never got to that because I had the fear of death put in me.
Oh, well, you could just stack up general benefits of going and kissing in public, because it's a social stigma that you've taken on and believed to be so. So you just have to change that idea.
Yeah. So the benefits of being seen kissing to public, to myself and others.
It definitely, because shame is others related. Like, it's not, if you just did it and no one knew about it, and no one cared about it, it wouldn't be an issue. It's the society's dynamic. And did your parents, so out of curiosity, did your parents ever do public displays of
no way,
affection, or even in the house?
Barely ever. Which was, bugged me, because that to me then was a sign that they weren't in an intimate, loving relationship. I mean, I collapsed that a long time ago when I saw that they loved each other so deeply as family. But yeah, I don't know about their sexual connection. Although I'm pretty sure I walked in on them once.
Yeah. I'm sure
So that's kind of good.
Is that like it's like everyone's done that once and they never do it again because it's like ow. Yeah. I just have to share the photo that Belle shared because it's very funny. There you go. That's so good. Thank you, Nina. So so go start there, and then let me know how you go. Nina.
Hello.
Good morning.
I'm in bed, so nobody can see me. But I know we're all friends and stuff, but boundaries, please. I have a question. So, because you know, like, so you know how so Tanya and I have been working together for a few years, everyone. So but you know how to, so you know I'm gay. I'm stuttering. So this topic is a bit much for me, going to a private girls' Catholic school, and it's a bit like a lot of the information I couldn't absorb, even the words you were saying. I was like, what the fuck? So I have to watch this replay probably about 300 to 400 times to really hear what's going on.
Which is beautiful to let you, just because our resistance to hearing it is just showing how much unresolved dynamic we can go and clear, because then you'll be more open to being able to hear the information.
Can you say the first part again? When I can hear it, I'll be open to it
when you resolve the Catholic school, what you've been taught about sexuality, like all your emotional blocks that you have that isn't allowing you to hear it.
Okay. Can I ask another question if we have time?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
But it's not really related to the topic.
That's okay.
It's just so I'm going through some like challenges, like major, where I don't want to eat, I don't want to sleep. Like the work, very long story short, my work has run out, my boss has run out of money to pay my wages. And I'm like, oh. So I have to find a solution in a short amount of time. But it's hard for me to stay logical and make logical choices because I'm emotional.
Well, for sure, when we have our, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you have your money, which is your shelter and your food and your life support being taken away, that's going to send you into a panic mode in which you can fight, flight, freeze, fawn dynamic, which is in this dynamic, maybe you're going into more freeze mode, which is just your biological program that you have going, that anytime something dramatic or something challenging really happens, your body goes into, this is the setup. Some people go into fight, some people go into running away as their standard mode, some people go into like freezing, I don't know what to do. And so it's just feedback to let you know that you've got some kind of misperception, because remember that you're co-creating every dynamic. So even though your boss has currently not have money to pay you for your wages, you're also co-creating not to be paid for your wages as well.
Oh.
Also, if we look at the dynamic, if we sometimes when we go into shock, it's like, oh my God, I'm really shocked right now and I don't know what just happened. But if we actually go back and we look at what had been happening for the days, months, weeks, leading up to that moment, this moment today, you would have known certain things, that the business wasn't going very well, struggling financially. There would be signs to show that it was not okay.
Yeah.
And so, but were you paying attention or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you were hoping for the best?
Yeah, I was hopeful. I guess I was just sort of like the analogy that I had in my mind is that like I was like, you know, I'm rowing the boat with the manager and the other person, and then she just jumped ship. She's like, I'm going to do this other project now. And then so I just sat in the boat and waited and paddled every now and again and did my job. But now the boat's been sinking for 6 months. So yeah.
So if there's an attachment there, because then there's an attachment to that job, because you've seen sinking, if you've been seeing it sink for 6 months, but then there's an attachment to that job or that role or your identity potentially wrapped up inside of that. So when we see no option, we can feel like freeze. But what you want to do potentially, if you want to just a practical thing to start you moving forward, it would be looking at what are like 10 different options you can do now. Because the moment you start, you will start feeling more free if you know that there's options ahead of you to gain employment, change the dynamic, get paid, so that you can start to feel things moving. And then you can start doing the mental side of things, which is maybe there's stuff around money. Maybe there's, not owning your authority because you're leading the authority into someone else. Like it's looking at the different dynamics will help to clear the dynamic.
Okay, so write a list of options. Is that step one? Okay.
Yeah, options. The more it's like, we want to look at the mindset side of things, and we want to also look at practical. I think sometimes what happens is we want to instantly go to mindset and clear it that way. But sometimes if it's just a, immediate need and you're like not being able to function, it's like just look at some practical steps that gets you moving or gets things changing, and then you can be, because sometimes we're not resourced to be able to work on our mindset, and we have to do something practical first to start noticing changes, and then you can go into the mindset stuff.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and Belle's also put a little extra question, so maybe we'll just like take note. All right, team. Let me know if you have it. We'll do one more. If we've got one more question, we'll do one more question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does this whole thing about like sexual shame, and like I don't know the history of this, so I might be like ignorant, but just looking at your thoughts around it, because I'm hearing a lot of the conversation in my world right now around like the LGBTQ community, and like I don't know, like it's a lot more prevalent now, and like they're talking about it in schools and all that stuff. And I'm wondering, like, does that have something to do with like our general sexual repression, so it's getting expressed in a different way, or like, I don't know.
I think there was a lot more taboo, or I'd say there was a lot more taboo around, we have, sexuality is not, you're just monogamous, or you're just like the opposite sex, or you like the same, like there's varying degrees. And so it's been in our it's been in our environment or in our culture for a long time, but it's been socially not accepted. And so now it's becoming more accepted, which is why it's getting talked about more. And then people feel more freely to be able to go and express themselves. So I think it's just a change in social dynamics. I mean, it's been, if we look at, like I was talking to my friend who he's gay, he's like in his 30s, and he was like, he remembers when he was like 16 years old going onto Bondi Beach and seeing a guy hold another guy's hand and kiss him in public. And he remembers just being like, oh my God, there are other people out there like me. Like that was his moment of him realizing, and he hadn't yet shared with the outer world that he was gay, but he felt that way. And so there was so much more social stigma in liking someone of the same sex. And so then the result of that was they were more shut down. So it was more hidden in society. So now it's more okay to be expressive of yourself, and the dynamic of, or the idea of like love is love. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you love, because it's all the same.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks.
So I think let's give it another 10 or 20 years. It'll become a more norm, maybe not globally a norm, because there's still going to be pockets of places where it's not, it's like I saw on coming. All right. So this book, if you haven't seen it, it's beautiful. And it's literally beautiful. It's called Beautiful News, and it's data analytics for all the beautiful news in the world. And so there's this one, which I think is beautiful. And it says, countries that have legalized homosexuality in the world. Is that not beautiful? So we have like a majority, I know, does it not make you feel like teary and want to cry? Like, it's just showing how much, like, there's a small fraction of the world that's still, it's not legalized and it's still condemned, but a majority, like China, Vietnam, Turkey, France, Brazil, Egypt, Spain, Germany, Mexico, Russia, and then every other country inside of there. So it's like, we give it more time and it will become more of a normalized, because it's also our generation. If we go back to, a couple of generations, it was not okay. And so our generation, we're more okay. So as we get older and the new generation come through, give it another couple of generations, and it will be a very much more of a norm of how we live life. Like, you guys are like the leaders in this, which is beautiful. You're the ones that get to influence how it's going to impact society, and the ones that are kind of standing up for it. So it's amazing. Yeah. Did that answer your question? I'll give you, or did that?
Yeah, it did. That's awesome.
Okay,
Thanks,
okay,
Kat.
cool. That's okay. All right, team. So thank you for coming along for class. I hope you enjoyed it. Take some gold nuggets of wisdom. Hopefully I'll see you at the transformational days, or at least one of the days. The discount applies for both. So if you come along, and you're a member, use sexy member. And then if you're not a member, you can just use sexy. Just own your sexy. Come along to one of the classes, give an opportunity to really clear whatever it is, sexual shame, or if you've got some other kind of dynamic you want to work on, then you can also use that as an opportunity to do the work in there as well. So thank you, team. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day and an evening, and I will see you at the next perfect time. All right, take care, guys. Bye. See you. Thanks.